giving you different directions than the sheet, so you need to make sure you listen. We're going to use graphing technology second. What I want you to do with each of these functions for number 1 and number 2 is compared to each other, I want you to use qualitative words to say what you think they're going to look like compared to each other. So you're going to make a prediction looking at those first 4 and then those second 3. What would the graph look like compared to each other?
Observation with the left.
So when we start the first one, this is a bank account. Looking at it, what's something that we know is true about all of them? Like what's in common with all of them?
They're all. Actually, no, they're not all.
They all start with 50.
Yeah.
They all start with, so we know just looking at all of them, it's an account that starts with $50 in it. What do we know is true about everything in number 2?
They're all quadruple.
They're all quadrupling. There's all a growth factor 4. So there's something in common, so you can focus on what is not in common, and you're going to explain or make a prediction of what that's going to do to the graphs. Then we will reveal the graphs with the technology. I'll handle it for everybody, and then we'll see if your prediction comes true. I think we know enough about these functions that we can do a pretty good job with this. Here are those same functions in Desmos graphing calculator for us to look at. So you made predictions of what lines look like compared to each other. Let's test them out. So who has a prediction they'd like to share that they wrote down? Ivy?
Like, since they all have the same starting value, I knew that they were gonna, start at the same, y-intercept.
Yeah, let's test it out. Look where they all start, friends. They all start at 50. Okay, what's something else that we could have predicted about these lines? Sean?
For the first one, it was doubling over time.
It was doubling. So compared to the other lines, how would you describe what was happening to it?
They were all at different growth factors.
Different growth factors, okay? So that's true. How could you explain something about them relative to each other, Ryan? They all have exponents, okay, but I'm talking about qualitative aspects of this graph that we predicted. So we predicted all start at the same point. Yeah. Yeah, so not slope because it isn't a line, but like how much it increases. So looking at the equations, which one would you expect to increase the quickest? The 3, right? So let's check it out. That's this one right here, the blue one. Does that increase the quickest? Awesome. Which one would we expect to decrease?
The purple.
This last one, right? The 1/2, it has a growth. What about which one do we expect to increase the least out of the ones that increase?
The 3 over 2.
The 3/2 growth factor, which is this one, right? So they increase slower with the lower growth factor. They increase faster with the higher growth factor. That's a prediction we could make just by looking at the functions, correct? Everybody go with that? Everybody's good with that? Okay. So we changed the growth factor. It changed kind of like how fast it increases. So here we have those next ones that have the same growth factor. So what are some predictions we made about these 3 functions? What's a prediction, Maddie? Yeah, they start at different points, right? Here's my start at 10. Here's my start at 40. Here's my start at 100. So our y-intercept, our vertical intercept, is different. What about the steepness, right? Or how fast they increase? All the same, like they almost, we can't use the word parallel because that works for straight lines, but they almost look like parallel to each other, right? Like the gap looks like it's staying the same here once they really go up. They're increasing at the same rate, which is why that is true. And we know they're increasing at the same rate because they're all times 4 to an exponent. Right? Those are all things we can see from the function and we can see in the graph. And that's what we're trying to marry together, those 2 things, right? Because it's like a bigger overall, more clear picture when we have multiple representation. We've been talking about that a lot, right? Multiple representations give a bigger, more defined perspective.